Welcome to Top Screen Tales. What if the video game you mastered suddenly became a terrifying reality? For Japan's top Btooom player, the virtual arena is replaced by a remote island, and the digital bombs are now very, very real. In the digital world of the combat game Btooom, Ryota Sakamoto is a god. He's a top-ranked player, effortlessly predicting enemy movements and dominating the battlefield with his tactical use of BIMs, various types of bombs. In his dark room, illuminated only by the screen's glow, he's powerful, respected, and in complete control. His virtual teammates praise his skill as he secures another victory. This is his reality, the only one where he feels he truly matters. Outside this game, however, his life is a completely different story. The real world crashes in when his mother enters his room, pleading with him to find a job. Ryota, 22 and unemployed, reacts with fury. He screams at her to leave him alone, telling her to get a job herself if she's so concerned about money. He sees her as nothing but a nuisance, an obstacle to his gaming life. His verbal abuse is sharp and cruel, showcasing a man completely disconnected from his responsibilities and the people who care for him. He slams the door, retreating back into the only world where he feels successful.
Suddenly, everything goes black. Ryota's memory is a blur of confusion and fear. He has a fleeting, nightmarish recollection of being on a dark plane, surrounded by other unconscious people. Men in black tactical gear moved silently through the cabin, their faces impassive. He remembers a sharp prick in his arm before his consciousness faded completely. It felt like a dream, but the lingering sense of dread tells him something terrible and real has just happened to him. Where was he being taken, and why?
Block your number for good, but here you are texting me you up. I know exactly where this is, on your side of the bed at 3 a.m. I tell myself don't fall this time, but you say
As he gets his bearings, he notices a small black pouch attached to his belt. He opens it, and his blood runs cold. Inside are 8 small, crescent-shaped objects. He recognizes them instantly. They are BIMs, the bombs from the game. Then he sees it, a green crystal-like chip embedded in the back of his left hand, glowing faintly. This can't be real. It's the exact same setup as his avatar in Btooom. The horrifying realization begins to dawn on him. This isn't a dream. The game has somehow become his reality. Desperate for answers, Ryota begins to explore the jungle. After a short while, he spots another person in a clearing ahead, a large, intimidating man. Hope surges through him. He's not alone. He raises his hand and calls out, trying to ask what's going on. But the other man doesn't respond with words. His eyes widen with what looks like predatory glee. He immediately reaches into his own pouch, pulls out an identical BIM, and hurls it directly at Ryota with practiced, deadly intent. The hope vanishes, replaced by pure terror.
Ryota dives behind a thick tree just as a massive explosion rips through the spot where he was standing. The ground shakes and shrapnel and dirt fly through the air. The terrifying sound echoes through the jungle. This is no game. The bombs are real, the danger is real, and this man is actively trying to murder him. His heart pounds in his chest as another BIM whistles through the air, exploding nearby. His mind is racing, trying to process the impossible. He is being hunted in a real-life version of Btooom. Panic gives way to instinct. All those hours, all those virtual battles, his muscle memory takes over. He dodges another attack and, seeing an opening, pulls out one of his own BIMs. He primes it and throws it with the precision of a top-ranked player. It sails through the air and lands perfectly at his attacker's feet. The man looks down in shock for a split second before he is engulfed in a brutal explosion. Ryota stares at the smoking crater, the reality of what he's just done crashing down on him. He survived, but he just killed a man.
The morning sun does little to burn away the horror of the previous night. Ryota is racked with guilt over his first kill. The man's terrified face burned into his memory. He stares at the green chip embedded in his own left hand, the source of this nightmare. He didn't want this. He's a gamer, not a murderer. Clenching his fist, he makes a vow to himself and to the island. He will survive, but he will not kill again. He resolves to find a way to win this twisted game without becoming the monster they want him to be. While searching for water, Ryota hears a cry for help. Cautiously, he follows the sound and discovers a terrified, middle-aged man with a leg injury hiding from an unseen threat. The man, Taira Kiyoshi, is initially panicked, begging Ryota not to kill him. Seeing his genuine fear and vulnerability, Ryota lowers his guard, trying to assure the man he means no harm. This is the first person he's met who isn't immediately trying to kill him, a small, fragile glimmer of hope in the suffocating jungle.
Taira, seeing Ryota isn't an immediate threat, begins to explain what he knows. He reveals the horrifying truth of their situation. They need to collect 7 other players' chips to win and be rescued. The chip is surgically implanted and can only be removed once the owner is dead. Taira is a real estate agent, completely unequipped for this reality, and he pleads with Ryota to team up. He argues that alone, they're dead, but together, they might just have a chance to survive this madness. Ryota agrees to the alliance. He shares some of the food he scavenged from his first kill, a gesture that seems to cement their fragile trust. Taira, weak from his injury and lack of food, is immensely grateful. They decide their first priority is to find a more defensible position and secure a steady supply of food and water. For the first time since arriving, Ryota isn't completely alone. The fear is still there, but now it's shared, making the burden just a little easier to bear. As they move through the jungle, they spot a figure in a clearing ahead, a high school girl with blonde hair. Ryota, holding on to his vow not to kill, sees a potential third ally. He tells Taira to stay back, hoping a non-threatening approach might work. He calls out to her, trying to sound friendly, suggesting they could all work together. He believes that if they can just talk, they can break the cycle of violence the game's creators want them to fall into. But he's about to learn how naive that hope is.
The moment the girl, Himiko, sees them, she doesn't hesitate. A look of pure, unadulterated terror crosses her face. She screams, calling them monsters, and immediately lobs a cracker beam at their feet. The explosion rips through the clearing, forcing Ryota and Taira to dive for cover. Her attack is not strategic or calculated. It's a frantic, desperate assault fueled by a deep-seated fear. She continues to hurl bombs, screaming for them to stay away, trapping them in a deadly barrage. A sharp, traumatic flashback rips through Himiko's mind, revealing the source of her terror. We see her and a group of friends, cheerful and carefree, being cornered by a menacing group of young men in the city. The scene is dark and threatening, cutting away before the worst happens, but implying a horrific assault. This single memory explains everything: her paranoia, her immediate aggression, and her declaration that all men are beasts. For her, this island is just a new version of a nightmare she's already lived.
Snapping back to reality, Ryota realizes they can't reason with her. Using his Btooom expertise, he throws a bomb not at her, but at a nearby tree, using the blast to create a smokescreen and a diversion. As Himiko panics amidst the chaos, Ryota and Taira make their escape. They retreat into the dense jungle, hearts pounding. Ryota is shaken, not just by the attack, but by the raw terror in her eyes. He now understands that their enemies on this island aren't just players, they're broken, traumatized people. Himiko scrambles away into the dense jungle, screaming for them to stay back. "I won't be fooled," she cries, her voice filled with a terror that goes beyond the game. Ryota is left stunned, holding the BIM she dropped, completely bewildered by her reaction. He just wanted to help. Taira, ever the cautious one, points out that she's in no condition to survive alone. Despite the risk, they agree they can't just leave her to die. Reluctantly, they decide to follow, hoping to find her before another player, or the island itself, does.
The episode cuts to a jarringly different scene, a brightly lit high school classroom. This is Himiko's past. She's surrounded by her friends, who are excitedly planning to meet some older guys from a different school. Himiko seems hesitant, a flicker of unease on her face, but she's pressured into going along. Her friends laugh and joke, painting a picture of a fun night out, but the viewer can sense something is deeply wrong beneath the surface. This memory is the key to her fear, the source of her trauma. The scene shifts to a dimly lit apartment. The fun, friendly atmosphere is gone, replaced by a sense of menace. The older guys are aggressive, and Himiko's friends have conveniently vanished, leaving her isolated and vulnerable. It becomes sickeningly clear this was a setup. One of the men corners her, his intentions obvious. Panic sets in as Himiko realizes the friends she trusted have led her into a trap. Her worst fears are coming true, and there's nowhere to run.
Just as her attacker lunges, Himiko's survival instinct kicks in. She fumbles in her bag and pulls out a taser, a last line of defense she hoped she'd never have to use. With a desperate cry, she presses it against him, the crackle of electricity filling the room as he convulses and collapses. She doesn't wait to see what happens next. She bolts from the apartment, running without looking back. This single traumatic event has shattered her ability to trust anyone, especially men, branding them all as potential predators. Back in the jungle, Ryota and Taira are carefully tracking Himiko's path. The oppressive heat and strange sounds of the island weigh on them. Suddenly, they freeze. A low hiss cuts through the air. Parting the giant ferns, they see it, a Komodo dragon, larger than any they could have imagined. Its forked tongue flicks out, tasting the air. This isn't just a game of player versus player anymore. The island itself is a hunter, and they are squarely on its menu. Miles away, a terrified Himiko stumbles into a clearing, only to find her escape route cut off. Her heart plummets as she sees what's blocking her path, a pack of the same giant Komodo dragons. They begin to circle her, their movements slow and predatory. She reaches for her bag of BEMs, but it's empty. She used them all in her panic against Ryota. Trapped, disarmed, and paralyzed by fear, she can only watch as the creatures close in for the kill.
Just as the lead dragon lunges, a familiar whoosh cuts through the air. A cracker beam lands, not on the creatures, but on a rock face above them. Ryota has arrived. He hasn't targeted the lizards directly, instead using his elite Btooom gaming knowledge. He knows a loud, disorienting blast is more effective for crowd control than a direct hit. The bomb detonates in a flash of light and sound, sending rock shards flying and stunning the predators. The explosion throws the Komodo dragons into chaos. Seizing the moment, Ryota sprints forward, grabs the stunned Himiko, and pulls her behind a large boulder for cover. The remaining lizards, confused and agitated, eventually retreat back into the jungle. As the silence returns, Himiko looks up at Ryota. He's breathing heavily, but his eyes show only concern. He saved her life without hesitation, an act of pure altruism that directly contradicts the trauma that has defined her. For the first time, a flicker of trust appears in her eyes.
The fragile alliance between Ryota, Himiko, and Taira begins to solidify. They set up camp, and Ryota, trying to break the tension, offers Himiko some of his rations. She hesitates, her eyes filled with distrust, but her hunger wins out, and she cautiously accepts. Taira watches the exchange, hopeful that they can work together. Ryota sees this small act as a major victory, a first step towards building the trust they'll need to survive. He knows they are stronger together, but Himiko's deep-seated fear remains a fragile barrier between them, one that could shatter at any moment. Gathered around a small fire, Ryota lays out his strategy. He explains the game mechanics to Taira and a still skeptical Himiko. "We don't have to kill anyone," he insists, pointing to the green chip embedded in his hand. "We need 8 of these. We can get them from players who are already dead." He believes they can survive by outlasting the others, by being smarter, not more brutal. Taira seems relieved by this peaceful approach, but Himiko remains silent, her expression unreadable. For Ryota, this is more than a game. It's a test of his own morality. While scouting the dense jungle, the group makes a gruesome discovery. A player's lifeless body lies half submerged in a shallow stream, his face frozen in a silent scream. The sight is a brutal reminder of the stakes. Ryota kneels down and examines the body, his face grim. He quickly discovers the man's left hand is missing. The chip has already been taken.
A cold dread washes over them. The killer is not only active, but also close by. The island isn't just a prison, it's a hunting ground. And they've just stumbled into a predator's territory. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the jungle silence. A menacing, muscular man emerges from the shadows, a cruel smirk on his face. "Looking for this?" he asks, dangling a severed hand with a chip still embedded in it. This is Masashi Miyamoto, a veteran of this twisted game. He boasts about his skills and his collection of chips, radiating an aura of pure sadism and confidence. He sizes up Ryota, Taira, and Himiko, not as people, but as his next 3 trophies. His presence immediately shifts the atmosphere from one of cautious survival to imminent, deadly combat.
Without another word, Miyamoto launches his assault. He moves with terrifying speed and precision, hurling cracker beams that ricochet off trees and rocks with deadly accuracy. The explosions rip through the jungle, forcing Ryota's group to scatter. Miyamoto is a true professional, using the terrain to his advantage, flushing them out from cover like frightened animals. Taira panics, and Himiko freezes in terror. Ryota realizes they are completely outmatched in terms of raw combat experience. This isn't just a player, it's a seasoned murderer who enjoys his work. Pinned down by the relentless barrage, Ryota's gamer instincts take over. He ignores the fear and starts analyzing Miyamoto's attack patterns, his mind racing. He's good, but he's predictable, Ryota thinks, recognizing the strategies from the video game. He shouts instructions to Taira and Himiko, trying to coordinate a defense. He's trying to separate us. Stay close. He grabs a timer beam, his eyes scanning the battlefield for an opening. He knows a direct confrontation is suicide. Their only chance is to outsmart the veteran hunter with a plan he won't see coming.
Ryota puts his plan into motion. He hurls a timer beam as a decoy, forcing Miyamoto to move into a pre-selected position. On Ryota's signal, Himiko throws one of her precious stun bombs, catching the veteran off guard for a split second. It's the opening Ryota needed. He explodes from his cover, using his own bombs to herd Miyamoto into a narrow ravine. It's a high-stakes chess match where every move could be their last. Explosions rock the ground as the 2 expert players try to predict and counter each other's moves in a deadly dance. In the chaotic climax of the fight, Ryota manages to land a well-placed BIM near Miyamoto, the explosion injuring his leg and throwing him off balance. Miyamoto lets out a roar of fury and pain, shocked that this newcomer could actually wound him. Realizing he's been outplayed and is at a disadvantage, the veteran killer makes a tactical retreat, disappearing back into the jungle foliage. He's gone, but the threat lingers. Ryota, Himiko, and Taira are left breathless and shaken. They survived, but they now know for certain there's a monster on this island, and he'll be back for revenge.
The fragile alliance recoils from their bloody encounter with Miyamoto. The reality of their situation presses down on them. Food is scarce, and their temporary camp is exposed. Taira, visibly shaken, questions if they can truly survive this nightmare. Ryota, however, hardens his resolve. He knows that passivity means death. He looks at his 2 companions, the fear in their eyes fueling his determination. They need to find a more secure location and, more importantly, a stable food source if they're going to last another day. The hunt isn't just for other players anymore, it's for survival itself. Ryota decides they need to split up to search for food more efficiently. He and Taira will forage while Himiko guards their supplies. The idea immediately terrifies Himiko. Her past trauma makes being left alone, vulnerable, her worst nightmare. She protests, but Ryota tries to reassure her, explaining it's the most logical plan. He hands her a BIM, showing her how to use it for defense. With a final, worried glance, Ryota and Taira head into the dense foliage, leaving a trembling Himiko to clutch her stun gun and pray for their quick return.
Himiko's solitude is shattered by the arrival of 3 other players. Their leader, a man named Imagawa, approaches with a disarming smile, claiming they're just looking for allies. They offer her food and propose they all team up for safety. But Himiko's instincts scream that something is wrong. The way they look at her, their predatory gazes lingering too long, confirms her fears. They aren't seeking an ally, they're predators who have just found their prey. Her hand tightens on her stun gun as she slowly backs away, trying to keep a calm facade. The friendly act dissolves in an instant. Imagawa and his cronies drop the pretense and lunge for Himiko. They try to rip the bag of bombs from her and grab her stun gun. Panic overtakes her as she fights back with desperate strength, but she's outnumbered and overpowered. One of the men pins her arms while another tries to restrain her. All her deepest fears are realized in this violent assault, and she lets out a piercing scream that echoes through the suffocatingly quiet jungle. A desperate plea for help that might never come.
Miles away, Ryota and Taira freeze. Himiko's scream cuts through the air, unmistakable and filled with terror. Without a second of hesitation, Ryota drops the fruit he'd gathered and breaks into a dead sprint back towards their camp. Adrenaline courses through him, his mind racing with the worst possible scenarios. Taira, older and less athletic, struggles to keep pace, shouting Ryota's name. But Ryota doesn't slow down, pushing himself past his limits, branches whipping at his face as he crashes through the undergrowth, driven by a single desperate thought. He has to get to her. Ryota bursts into the clearing just as the men are about to overpower Himiko. He doesn't shout, he roars, hurling a cracker beam into their midst. The bomb explodes with a blinding flash and deafening bang, disorienting the attackers. In that split second of confusion, Ryota positions himself directly between them and a terrified Himiko. Get the hell away from her, he snarls, his eyes burning with a protective fury. The attackers, recovering from the stun, turn their attention to this new, unexpected threat. The standoff is set.
The fight erupts into chaos. Imagawa's group, enraged by the interruption, starts hurling their own bombs at Ryota. He dives and weaves, using his gamer's reflexes to predict the trajectories and avoid the blasts. Just as Taira arrives to help, a stray piece of shrapnel from an explosion slices into his leg, sending him crashing to the ground in pain. The odds have just gotten worse. Ryota is now alone, trying to defend a wounded man and a terrified woman against 3 determined killers who are closing in for the kill. Seeing Taira go down, Ryota knows a direct confrontation is suicide. He needs a plan. He fakes a wide throw, drawing the attacker's eyes to one side. In that moment of distraction, he discreetly lobs a timer beam high into the dense canopy of the tree directly above them. The men, focused on Ryota's ground movements, don't notice the small object ticking away overhead. Just as they start to advance, the bomb detonates, raining fire and shrapnel down on them. The ambush completely incapacitates them, giving Ryota the opening he needs to grab Himiko and help a limping Taira escape.
Taira's condition has taken a dark turn. The wound on his leg is badly infected, a sickening red creeping up his skin, and he's burning with fever, muttering deliriously. Ryota and Himiko watch over him, their faces etched with worry. They know that without medicine, he won't last much longer. The guilt weighs heavily on Ryota. Taira was injured protecting them. Looking at Himiko's terrified expression, he makes a decision. They can't just wait for him to die. They have to find help, and they have to find it now, no matter the risk. Suddenly, the familiar drone of an engine cuts through the jungle's oppressive silence. They look up to see a cargo plane soaring overhead. A moment later, a dark shape detaches and plummets towards the island, a parachute blooming behind it. A supply drop. It's a beacon of hope in their desperate situation. Ryota and Himiko exchange a look of grim determination. That case could contain food, water, or, most importantly, a first aid kit. Leaving Taira hidden as best they can, they agree to risk everything to secure it. It's their only chance. They move cautiously through the dense foliage, closing in on the supply case's landing site. As they peer through the leaves into a small clearing, their hearts sink. They're not the first to arrive. 3 figures are already there, 2 menacing-looking men and a small, frightened boy who can't be more than 12. One of the men kicks the case, barking orders at the child. Ryota and Himiko freeze, melting back into the shadows. This just went from a simple retrieval mission to a potentially deadly confrontation. They're outnumbered and outgunned. From their hiding spot, they witness a disturbing scene. The 2 men, Imagawa and Kinoshita, are relentlessly bullying the young boy, Yoshioka. They shove him towards the supply case, screaming at him to open it, clearly using him as a pawn to check for traps. The boy flinches with every shout, his hands trembling as he fumbles with the latch. Ryota clenches his fists in anger, disgusted by their cruelty. It's a stark reminder of the worst of humanity that this island brings out. He knows they can't let monsters like these get the supplies.
Ryota whispers to a tense Himiko, laying out a desperate plan. "We can't fight them head on," he says. "We have to be smarter." He pulls out one of his few remaining bombs, a timer beam. He explains the strategy. He'll set the timer and throw it far into the woods, creating a loud diversion. While the men are distracted by the explosion, he'll sprint for the case. It's incredibly risky. If his timing is off by a single second, he'll be caught in the open. Himiko looks terrified, but nods in agreement. They have no other choice. Ryota sets the timer, his heart pounding in his chest. He hurls the bomb deep into the jungle. 3, 2, 1, boom. The explosion rips through the air, and just as planned, the 2 men whip around, startled, searching for the source of the attack. That's Ryota's cue. He bursts from the foliage, a blur of motion. He snatches the heavy case, hoists it onto his shoulder, and sprints back towards the trees without a second's hesitation. The men shout in rage as they realize they've been duped, and the chase is on.
The two of them tear through the jungle, the shouts of their pursuers close behind. "Split up!" Ryota yells, and Himiko veers off. Soon, one of the men, Kinoshita, closes in on her, a sadistic grin on his face. He expects her to be easy prey. But as he lunges, Himiko whips out her stun gun, the one Ryota gave her. A high-voltage crackle fills the air, and the man convulses, collapsing to the ground. Himiko stares at the fallen man, breathing heavily, a look of shock and newfound resolve on her face. Meanwhile, Ryota isn't so lucky. He rounds a cluster of rocks and runs straight into the other man, Imagawa. He's cornered. The supply case clatters to the ground as Imagawa raises a cracker beam, ready to finish him. But just as all hope seems lost, a small figure emerges from the trees. It's the boy, Yoshioka. With tears streaming down his face, he screams, "I've had enough of you!" and throws his own bomb, not at Ryota, but directly at his abuser, Imagawa. The man's face twists in shock as the bomb lands at his feet.
Ryota finds the young boy, Yoshioka, standing in shock over the body of his abuser, Murashige. The boy is trembling, having just committed his first kill with a cracker beam. Ryota, remembering his own first kill, approaches cautiously. He tries to comfort the traumatized child, telling him it was self-defense and that it's over now. But as he gets closer, he notices something is wrong. The boy's fear seems almost performative, and Ryota's instincts scream that he's walking into a trap. His eyes dart around the dense jungle, searching for the real threat he now feels is watching him. Meanwhile, Himiko has cornered Natsume, the other man from the abusive group. Using her stun beam, she's paralyzed him completely. He lies helpless on the ground, unable to move, pleading for his life. Himiko stands over him, her finger hovering over the trigger of her lethal beams. But she hesitates. The man's desperate pleas trigger flashbacks of her past trauma, of being cornered and assaulted. Her resolve crumbles, replaced by a wave of paralyzing fear. She sees not a defeated enemy, but another man who wants to hurt her, and she freezes, unable to act.
Back with Ryota, his suspicions are confirmed. A calm, familiar voice calls out his in-game name, Sakamoto. From the shadows emerges Nobutaka Oda, a player Ryota knows all too well. He was Ryota's best friend and teammate in the online version of Btooom. Ryota is speechless, his mind reeling. He can't believe that his friend, someone he trusted completely in the game, is here. Oda smirks, his eyes cold and devoid of any warmth. He confirms his identity, revealing that their past friendship means nothing to him in this real-life deathmatch. The reunion is not a miracle, but a nightmare. Oda reveals he was the one who nominated Ryota for the game, a stunning act of betrayal. He casually tosses a BIM, not at Ryota, but to demonstrate his skill, showing off a homing type that Ryota has never seen before. He mocks Ryota's idealism and his refusal to kill, calling him weak and pathetic. In the game, you were a god, Oda says, but here, you're just prey. The psychological attack is as devastating as a physical one. Ryota realizes the man in front of him is not the friend he knew, but a ruthless killer who has fully embraced the island's brutality.
The battle begins, and Ryota is immediately on the defensive. Oda is not just skilled, he's a professional. He moves with a deadly grace, using the terrain to his advantage and predicting Ryota's every move. He effortlessly dodges Ryota's cracker beams while launching his own homing explosives, forcing Ryota into a desperate retreat. Ryota's gaming experience is no match for Oda's real-world combat prowess and killer instinct. Every explosion pushes him closer to the edge of a cliff, cornering him with terrifying efficiency. He is completely and utterly outmatched. As Oda toys with him, Ryota tries to reason with his old friend, appealing to their shared past. "Oda, why are you doing this? We were partners." But Oda just laughs, his voice filled with contempt. He explains that the strong devour the weak, and their friendship was just a convenience from a world that no longer matters. He relishes Ryota's despair, seeing it as proof of his own superiority. For Oda, this isn't just a fight for survival. It's the ultimate validation of his ruthless philosophy, a final victory over the player he once envied.
Ryota is trapped against the cliff face, out of options and out of breath. Oda stands over him, savoring the moment of victory. He raises his arm, preparing to throw the final fatal BIM. Just as all hope seems lost, an explosion erupts between them. Himiko has arrived. Having overcome her own paralysis, she tracked the sounds of the battle and intervened at the last possible second. The unexpected attack throws Oda off balance, creating the opening Ryota desperately needed. He looks up to see Himiko, no longer a damsel in distress, but a determined ally. Seizing the opportunity, Ryota grabs the medical case and pulls Himiko with him, plunging into the dense undergrowth. Oda, enraged at having his victory snatched away, screams threats after them, but they are already disappearing into the darkness. They have the medicine for Taira, but the cost was immense. Ryota is not only physically beaten, but psychologically shattered by Oda's betrayal. As they run, he realizes the game has just become infinitely more dangerous. His greatest ally from the digital world is now his most formidable enemy in the real one.
Ryota and Himiko rush back to their cave hideout, medical supplies in hand. They find Taira in a terrible state, racked by fever and muttering deliriously. His wound is badly infected, and his mind is clearly beginning to fray from the pain and stress. They quickly clean the injury and apply the antibiotics, a small glimmer of hope in the oppressive darkness. But as they work, Taira's eyes dart around nervously. He stares at them not with gratitude, but with a growing, unsettling suspicion, whispering about how people always abandon the weak and useless. With Taira seemingly stabilized, Ryota decides he must find a fresh source of water. He tries to reassure a hesitant Himiko, telling her he'll be back as soon as possible. "Just watch over him," he says, forcing a confident smile. But as he leaves the cave, the atmosphere is heavy with dread. Himiko is left alone with Taira, whose breathing is ragged and whose eyes follow her every move. The temporary relief brought by the medicine is already fading, replaced by the terrifying reality of their isolation and Taira's deteriorating mental state.
Alone with Himiko, Taira's paranoia consumes him. His fevered mind flashes back to his life before the island, to the moment his trusted colleagues betrayed him, framing him to save their own skin. He begins to project this past trauma onto the present, seeing Ryota and Himiko not as saviors, but as schemers. He mutters to himself, convinced they see him as a burden, a weak link they plan to cut loose. To him, Ryota's quest for water isn't an act of help, but the first step in abandoning him to die. Taira's paranoia finally boils over into violence. With a desperate cry, he lunges at a terrified Himiko, easily overpowering her. He pins her to the ground, his face a mask of fear and rage. "You are going to leave me," he screams, accusing her and Ryota of plotting to steal his supplies and leave him for dead. He grabs her pouch of bims, his hands shaking as he rips it from her. For Himiko, it's a living nightmare, her deepest fears about men realized once again, this time at the hands of someone she thought was an ally.
Ryota returns to the cave and freezes in horror at the scene before him. Taira has Himiko bound and is clutching his bims, pacing like a caged animal. His eyes are wild, and he immediately points a finger at Ryota. "Traitor, I knew it!" Taira shouts, his voice cracking. "You are going to leave me behind!" Ryota is stunned, unable to process how their trusted friend could have turned on them so completely. The alliance he fought so hard to build has just imploded, turning their sanctuary into a hostage situation. Ryota holds his hands up, trying desperately to reason with his friend. "Taira, what are you doing? We're a team. I brought back medicine for you," he pleads. But his words are useless. Taira is lost in his own paranoid delusion, screaming that Ryota is just like the co-workers who betrayed him. He sees kindness as a trick and help as a prelude to abandonment. Every attempt Ryota makes to de-escalate only seems to confirm Taira's twisted belief that he is being manipulated before being discarded.
Realizing words have failed, the situation erupts into violence. Taira begins hurling his cracker bims wildly around the small cave. Explosions rock the confined space, sending shrapnel and dust everywhere. Ryota shoves Himiko behind a rock for cover as he dodges the panicked, clumsy attacks. He knows he can't afford to get hit, but the thought of seriously harming his own teammate is sickening. The game has forced his hand, twisting a bond of friendship into a desperate, tragic fight for survival against one of their own. Ryota's superior skill and calm under pressure win out. He uses the chaos to his advantage, predicting Taira's panicked throws. In a split-second maneuver, he gets in close and attaches one of his own bims to Taira's chest. Defeated, Taira collapses, disarmed and mentally broken. There's no victory here, only profound sadness. Ryota unties a sobbing Himiko, but the damage is done. Their three-person alliance is shattered beyond repair, leaving them more vulnerable and emotionally scarred than ever before.
The weight of Tyra's betrayal and subsequent defeat hangs heavy in the air. Ryota and Himiko sit in silence, the emotional wounds far deeper than any physical ones. Ryota stares at his hands, the same hands that planted the bomb which ended the conflict, replaying the moment over and over. He's a survivor, but he feels like a monster. Himiko watches him, her own trauma palpable, but she offers a quiet presence, a silent understanding that they are all that's left of their shattered group. They survived their friend's madness, but the victory feels like a devastating loss, leaving them more isolated than ever before. Knowing they can't stay in a place haunted by such a painful memory, they pack their few belongings and move on. The jungle is oppressive, a maze of green and shadow, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. After hours of exhausting travel, they stumbled upon an unexpected sight, a large concrete military ruin, half swallowed by vines and decay. It's a fortress, a relic of a forgotten war, but to them it represents something crucial: shelter. Cautiously, they approach the dark, imposing entrance, hoping to find a defensible position to rest and regroup from the island's endless horrors.
Inside, the air is stale and thick with dust. The facility is a ghost town of rusted metal and abandoned equipment. As they explore the dark corridors with a flashlight, they realize they aren't the first players to find this place. They discover discarded food wrappers, crude barricades, and grim, dark stains on the floor. In one of the rooms, lying on a dusty cot, is a weathered notebook. Ryota picks it up, his instincts telling him this is important. It's a diary left behind by a previous player, a record of their time in this very same nightmare. Ryota begins to read the diary aloud to Himiko. The entries start with hope, but quickly descend into paranoia and terror. The writer details how their group turned on each other, driven mad by fear in the game's brutal rules. It's a chilling echo of what happened with Tyra. But then, a final entry offers a sliver of hope amongst the despair. The writer mentions a special high-tech briefcase and a plan to hijack the plane that delivers supplies, suggesting a potential, albeit incredibly dangerous, path to freedom. An escape plan might actually exist.
Their discovery is violently interrupted by a deafening explosion that rocks the entire facility, sending dust and debris raining down. They are under attack. Ryota scrambles to a broken window, peering out into the jungle. His blood runs cold. He sees a small figure moving through the trees with a sadistic grin plastered on his face. It's Yoshihisa Kira, the young boy they encountered at the supply drop. But he's different now, no longer a victim, but a confident and cruel hunter, armed with bims and a terrifying desire to kill. "Found you!" Yoshihisa's childish voice echoes through the ruins, filled with chilling glee. But he's not alone. A man's voice calls out, giving the boy instructions. It's his father, Kosuke Kira, a disgraced lawyer who is calmly coaching his son through murder. The man treats the death game as a bonding experience, praising his son's cruelty and teaching him the most effective ways to hunt and torture other players. Ryota and Himiko realize they haven't just stumbled upon another player. They've found a monstrous father-son duo playing a twisted game of their own.
Pinned down by a barrage of bombs, Ryota's mind races. He's not on an open field anymore. He's in a complex, multi-level structure. This is his element. He quickly analyzes the father's instructions and the boy's attack patterns, recognizing the strategies of a novice being guided by a strategist. "Himiko, I have a plan," he whispers urgently. He points out routes and corridors, explaining how they can use the building's layout to separate their attackers and turn their coordinated assault into a chaotic mess. It's a risky gambit, but it's their only chance. The plan is put into motion. Himiko creates a diversion while Ryota circles around, initiating a tense cat and mouse game with Yoshihisa in the facility's labyrinthine basement. Explosions echo in the tight corridors as the boy recklessly tries to flush him out. But Ryota is smarter. He anticipates the boy's moves, using the darkness and his knowledge of bomb trajectories to his advantage. In a final swift maneuver, he gets the drop on Yoshihisa, using a cracker beam not to kill, but to wound and disarm him, forcing the boy and his furious father to make a temporary retreat. The battle begins in the suffocating darkness of the abandoned military base. Ryota and Himiko are split up, their only connection the frantic blips on their radars. The chilling, youthful laughter of Kosuke Kira echoes through the concrete corridors, a sound promising pure sadism. His father, Yoshihisa, adds his own taunts, relishing their fear. Ryota knows this isn't just a fight against other players, it's a confrontation with monsters in human skin. He grips his bims, every nerve on fire, realizing they've been herded into the perfect killing ground, where skill and cruelty reign supreme. Meanwhile, Himiko is cornered by the father, Yoshihisa. He advances on her slowly, a leering grin on his face, clearly enjoying her terror. But Himiko is no longer the helpless girl she once was. As he lunges, she shoves her stun gun into his side, the crackle of electricity filling the air. The shock gives her just enough time to scramble away, lobbing a cracker bim behind her. It detonates, filling the hallway with blinding light and sound, allowing her to escape deeper into the labyrinthine complex. She's fighting back, and she's not going down easily.
Ryota tracks Kosuke on his radar, noting the boy's impossibly fast and precise movements. He's a pro, just like Oda, but with a terrifying, playful cruelty. Ryota realizes a direct fight is suicide. Instead, he uses the base's layout to his advantage, setting a trap. He places a timed bim on a crumbling wall and waits, using himself as bait. He calls out, feigning panic, trying to lure the predator into his kill zone. The blip on his radar approaches, faster and faster. The trap is set. Now, he just has to hope Kosuke takes the bait. Kosuke rounds the corner, but he's too smart. He spots the trap instantly, a wide, mocking grin spreading across his face. "You're not bad," he giggles, before casually flicking one of his own bombs at Ryota's position. Ryota dives for cover just as the explosion rips through the corridor, showering him with concrete dust. The hunter has become the hunted. Kosuke's speed and game sense are on another level, turning Ryota's carefully laid plans into a desperate scramble for survival. The boy isn't just playing, he's toying with him.
As they exchange blows, Kosuke's taunts become more personal and disturbing. He gleefully recounts his past, describing the horrific abuse he suffered at the hands of his father. But there's no sadness in his voice, only a twisted pride. He explains that the abuse didn't break him. It taught him that inflicting pain is the ultimate power. For Kosuke, this death game isn't a curse. It's a paradise where he's finally free to be his true, monstrous self. Ryota listens in horror, realizing he's not fighting a person, but a complete void of empathy. Ryota regroups with Himiko in a small control room, the two of them catching a brief moment to breathe. They know they can't win a conventional fight. Looking at the control panels, Ryota formulates a desperate new plan. He explains to a frightened but determined Himiko that they need to exploit Kosuke's arrogance. They have to lure both father and son into one location and use the facility itself against them. It's a massive risk that relies on perfect timing, but it's their only shot at turning the tables on their sadistic pursuers.
The final act begins. Ryota openly exposes himself, running through a large open chamber, yelling challenges at Kosuke. The boy eagerly gives chase, unable to resist the chance to finish his prey personally. Just as he corners Ryota, Himiko, hidden on a catwalk above, triggers the facility's emergency systems. Massive steel blast doors begin to slam shut, trapping Kosuke and his father, who had been following behind. Their hunting ground has just become their cage, and Ryota is trapped inside with them. With nowhere to run, the final confrontation is brutal and direct. Ryota, using his last few bims, creates a chaotic field of explosions, using the smoke and confusion as cover. He gets in close, tackling the smaller Kosuke to the ground. He disarms the boy, holding him down as Kosuke thrashes and bites with feral rage. Ryota looks down at the sociopathic child, his own humanity tested. He can't bring himself to kill him, but he can't let him go. In a decisive moment, he uses his last bomb to trigger a ceiling collapse, incapacitating Kosuke under the rubble.
In the relative quiet after their battle with the Kiras, Ryota and Himiko find a moment to breathe. Exhausted and wounded, they lean on each other for support, the grim reality of their survival sinking in. Ryota tends to Himiko's injuries, his touch gentle, a stark contrast to the violence they just endured. They share a quiet understanding, a bond forged in terror and desperation. For a fleeting moment, they allow themselves to believe they might have a future, a way off this island. But on this island, peace is a luxury that never lasts, a brief calm before the next storm inevitably arrives. The fragile peace shatters. A figure emerges from the jungle with silent, deadly purpose. Masashi Miyamoto, the former soldier. He moves with a chilling efficiency, launching a surprise attack without a word. His eyes are cold, devoid of the sadistic glee of the Kiras or the frantic panic of others. This is simply a mission for him. Ryota barely has time to shove Himiko out of the way as Miyamoto's combat knife flashes past, embedding itself in the wall where her head was moments before. They are immediately on the defensive, facing a professional predator who has been hunting them all along.
Ryota tries to mount a counterattack, throwing a cracker bin to create distance, but Miyamoto is on another level. The soldier anticipates the move, diving into a roll and coming up firing his own bims with practiced precision. Every explosion from Ryota is met with a calculated response. Miyamoto closes the distance again, his movements fluid and economical, a whirlwind of deadly martial skill. Ryota, a top gamer, is completely outclassed by a real-world combat expert. He's forced back, his mind racing to find a strategy against an opponent who seems to have no weaknesses. The chaotic fight separates them. Himiko, armed with her stun gun, scrambles for cover, but Miyamoto is relentless. He disengages from Ryota and instantly zeroes in on her, seeing her as the weaker target. She finds herself trapped against a rock face, her escape cut off. Miyamoto approaches slowly, savoring the moment, his expression unreadable. He raises his knife, its edge glinting in the dim light. Himiko's hands tremble as she aims her stun gun, but she knows it's useless. She is paralyzed by fear, staring into the eyes of her executioner, her breath catching in her throat.
Just as Miyamoto lunges for the kill, a bim detonates at his feet, throwing him off balance. Out of the dense foliage steps a familiar, chilling figure, Nobutaka Oda. He walks with an unearned swagger, a confident smirk playing on his lips. He doesn't even glance at the terrified Himiko. His eyes are locked on Miyamoto, sizing him up with the cold appraisal of a fellow predator. Oda's sudden appearance changes the entire dynamic of the fight, transforming a desperate hunt into a tense three-way standoff. The hunter has just become the hunted, and a new game is about to begin. "I've been looking for you," Oda says, his voice dripping with arrogance. He casually tosses a bim from hand to hand, completely ignoring Ryota and Himiko. He explains that he's been cleaning up the small fry on the island and was game bored. Now he's found a worthy opponent. Miyamoto, recovering his stance, glares at Oda, recognizing a different kind of threat. This isn't a frightened victim. This is a rival. The air crackles with tension as the two alpha players face off. The fate of Ryota and Himiko, now a mere footnote in their personal battle for dominance.
The duel explodes into action. It's a battle of the island's titans. Oda's top-tier gaming reflexes against Miyamoto's brutal military efficiency. Explosions rip through the jungle as they exchange bims, each player showcasing incredible skill and tactical awareness. Oda nimbly dodges and weaves, using the environment to his advantage like a true pro gamer. Miyamoto is more direct, a force of nature who counters with disciplined fire and relentless pressure. For the first time, both men are facing someone on their own level, a deadly dance where one wrong move means instant annihilation. Hidden behind a thick tree, Ryota watches the high-level battle with a mix of awe and terror. He and Himiko are momentarily safe, forgotten in the clash of giants, but he knows this is only a temporary reprieve. Whoever wins this fight will be wounded, but will still be the most dangerous person on the island, and they will be coming for them next. His mind races, analyzing their movements, their strategies, the types of bims they use. He isn't just a spectator, he's a student, desperately searching for a weakness, any small advantage that could help them survive the victor.
The duel between the island's apex predators rages on. Miyamoto, the hardened soldier, relies on raw power and combat experience, launching a relentless assault. But Oda, the Btooom pro, is in his element. He gracefully evades, using the terrain and his deep knowledge of bims to turn the soldier's strength into a weakness. He predicts Miyamoto's every move, countering with perfectly timed cracker bims that force him onto the defensive. Ryota and Himiko can only watch in horror, realizing the gap in skill between them and these monsters is a chasm. They aren't just fighting players, they're fighting masters of the game. Oda seizes his chance. Feigning retreat, he lures Miyamoto into a narrow gorge. The soldier, smelling blood, charges in for the kill. It's a trap. Oda, from a high ledge, drops a remote-controlled bim right at Miyamoto's feet. The soldier looks up, his face a mask of shock and realization, just as Oda clicks the detonator. The explosion is deafening. When the dust settles, Oda stands over Miyamoto's broken body, calmly collecting his chips. He then turns his cold, calculating gaze directly towards Ryota and Himiko's hiding spot. The prelude is over. The main event has begun.
Knowing a direct fight is suicide, Ryota grabs Himiko's hand and runs. This isn't a retreat, it's a strategic repositioning. As they flee through the dense jungle, Ryota's mind races, analyzing every weakness he remembers from Oda's online gaming persona: arrogance, overconfidence, a tendency to rush his prey. He formulates a desperate, multi-layered plan. He explains it to a terrified Himiko, his voice low and urgent. "I need you to be the bait," he says, knowing the immense risk he's asking her to take. Their survival hinges entirely on outsmarting a genius who expects to win. Himiko's heart hammers against her ribs, every instinct screaming at her to run and hide. But then she looks at Ryota, at the determination in his eyes, the trust he's placing in her. She remembers how he has protected her, how he has never abandoned her. The fear doesn't vanish, but a new feeling rises to meet it: resolve. Taking a deep breath, she nods, her expression hardening. "I'll do it," she says, her voice shaking but firm. She takes her stun gun and her few remaining bombs, transforming from a scared victim into a willing decoy for the final deadly gambit.
The trap is set. Himiko breaks cover, running frantically through a pre-selected clearing. Just as Ryota predicted, Oda's arrogance gets the better of him. Seeing his weak prey alone and exposed, he gives chase with a cruel smile, eager to finish the game. He follows her into a rocky passage, completely focused on his target. That's when Ryota, hidden above, triggers the trap. A series of perfectly placed BIMs detonate, not on Oda, but on the cliff face above him. A massive landslide of rock and earth thunders down, completely blocking Oda's path and trapping him in the gorge. Ryota drops down, confronting his former friend. Oda, trapped and furious at being outsmarted, lunges with his last BIM. The two collide in a raw, desperate struggle. It's no longer about tactics, but pure will. Ryota fights with the image of Himiko in his mind, fueling a strength he didn't know he possessed. He manages to wrestle the bomb from Oda's grasp and pins him to the ground. He holds the activated cracker BIM over Oda's face, the timer ticking down. For a moment, the killer from the game has returned, holding total victory in his hand. Suddenly, a deafening whirring sound echoes through the canyon. Both men freeze, looking up. A black, unmarked helicopter descends from the sky, its searchlight bathing them in a blinding white glare. A voice from a loudspeaker announces, "The program has reached its conclusion. The final survivor has been determined." Is this their rescue, or their final judgment? Oda starts to laugh, a broken, manic sound. He believes he's won, that the organizers have arrived to crown him the victor. Ryota and Himiko can only stare in disbelief, their desperate battle interrupted by the very gods of this twisted game. A rope ladder drops from the helicopter. In that split second, Ryota makes a choice. He looks at the BIM in his hand, then at Oda's sneering face. He deactivates it and throws it aside. He's not a murderer. Grabbing Himiko, he screams, "Now!" They make a desperate sprint for the ladder, leaving a stunned Oda behind. They scramble up as the helicopter begins to ascend, the game masters seemingly indifferent to this unexpected outcome. As they rise above the island, they hold on to each other, looking down at the green hell they're finally leaving. They've survived, but the game is far from over. And that was the explosive story of Btooom. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this retelling, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Now I want to hear from you. What film, anime, or series should Top Screen Tales break down next?